Hello everyone. We're back. It's a new year. Yay! Yeah, welcome back to Myths and Stories, a podcast of epic proportions. We don't have an introductor today. All of our introductors are AFK, so you just get to listen to me introduce ourselves. I'm of course Ztories, with Mythborn.
Hello.
I was going to say that's your cue to say hi to the people.
Hi, people.
So we are back after our holiday break because I am implementing a law of the land that holidays are to be accepted and loved and used as times off to clear one's head and not get bogged down by crunch and the neediness to, because there's so much production involved in our little podcast here. But yeah, no, Myth and I both agreed that we were going to take the Christmas break off, and then Myth had an unfortunate thing. He got sick.
Like a lot. Like all of
a lot,
all of it at once.
All of it. And I stressed myself out, so I got sick. Not as bad as Myth, but yeah, no, that's we're back. We're better than ever. So yeah, we are still working through the Books of Sorrow.
Yep.
Where did we leave off last time? Myth?
So we had just ended verse 3 last time, 3:9 of the Books of Sorrow here, and I think maybe just to do a really brief recap. I suppose anyone that wants to can listen to these in order and pick, know exactly where we were, because they won't have a multi-week break. But for anyone that is maybe joining us at our most recent episode when this comes out, to do a very quick recap of what we had gone over in the previous verses. The very long story short version is the Hive used to be a species called the Krill. The royalty of a group of the Krill of the Osmium court. The royal heirs, three sisters, didn't like the direction that things were going for their species. They sought out power. They found that in the form of worm gods at the center of their planet called Fundament. The worm gods struck a deal with them that they and their species would carry the larvae of these worm gods and would have to feed those larvae, but in exchange they would be immortal for so long as they kept feeding them, and they would have great power in addition to that immortality. And so originally their motivation was revenge because they had been betrayed by another member of the court, and they hunted that person, that Pt.6, who betrayed their court, and killed their father, the previous Osmium king. They hunted them across Fundament, and then when Pt.6 hopped on a spaceship and left to one of the moons of Fundament, they followed them there, and there is a destruction left in their wake, and they came to call themselves the Hive. They established the Hive hierarchy of thrall feed acolytes, acolytes feed knights and wizards feed the ascendant above them, the ascendant above them then feeds Oryx, Savathun, or Xivu Arath, whichever one they're aligned to. There's a lot more that happens than just that little breakdown, but that more or less gets us to where we stopped last time, and brings us
Well, and
to
we also, I was going to say, we also established sword logic, right?
yeah. They established sword logic. The premise that there is one final shape that the universe will be whittled down to one sharp being is kind of the whole premise behind sword logic, and that's everything the Hive do are with that philosophy in mind, essentially. So yeah, but that brings us to verse 4, which picks up immediately after the Hive, specifically Oryx, has laid out that hierarchy I just discussed, where kind of the lowest tier, the thralls, give a little energy to the tier above them, who then give a little energy to the tier above them, and so on and so forth. And so essentially the entirety of the Hive society is feeding not only the tier above them, but also Oryx, Savathun, and Xivu Arath, eventually at kind of the end of that chain. So, verse 4:0 is titled A Golden Amputation. Behold the wrath of Oryx, coiled for 10,000 years. Behold the golden amputation, the fall of Tashabeth, the end of an age. We beat the worlds of Tashabeth like skull drums, and we howl in joy for our black war moons as they ram silver orbitals and gleaming star webs, where infant Tashbethi son ravens curl and die unborn. In his throne world, Oryx paces 10 times. On the first pace, Kragor sends the accursed to blight the Tashabeth worlds. On the second pace, the Tai unleash their battleships and arsenal ships to fight our moons. On the third pace, Oryx's war priest meets them in battle, and he is victorious. He paints the void with fire, he salts the earth with ash. On the fourth pace, Mengor and Kradug, dyad knights, go to the Raven Bridge, and they stand on it and kill the Tai for 10 years. On the fifth pace, the Tai Emperor Raven comes home to her bridge, and she cuts a moon with her talons. She cuts it open and kills its brood. On the sixth pace, Oryx speaks, saying, Listen to me, Emperor Raven, and I will describe to you the last true shape, which it is written on my tablet. And he puts out his fist full of black fire, and he swallows up the Emperor Raven with a wound. Ayat, only Oryx knows this power, the power to take. On the seventh pace, the perfect raven comes out of Oryx's wound, and she spreads her wings across Tashabeth. Never again is a Tashbethi child born. She is perfect. She enacts the will of Oryx. On the eighth pace, the Tai say, Listen, you are spoilers, you are sphincters and excreta, you rot. Why do you kill? We made silver orbitals and golden star webs. We hatched eggs. We had a good thing. Our clothes were nice, our food was famous. With one of her feathers, our emperor could have tickled the gods. On the ninth pace, Oryx says, This is the only God. This ability to dictate what will and will not exist. This power to go on existing. This is your God. On the 10th pace, the Tashabethi are extinct. Then Oryx says, Listen, my siblings, do you know what we have done? We have conquered our way to the edge of the deep. It whispers to me when I call on it, and it guides my flight. It says that we are its threshold and that I should come inside. I will go and speak to it. So that's a long one to start off
Yeah.
with.
Holy cow.
And we talked about this a little bit before. Many of these verses, especially at this point in the Books of Sorrow, we've transitioned from it being a journal of sorts, as it was in the first verses, to more of a religious text.
Absolutely.
A lot of these,
it's very biblical. It's very it's and biblical in the sense of it. It has a lot of like, we say this and therefore it is type prophecy type stuff, and
it's
I wouldn't say
it's written from the point of view of a worshiper about their God, you know.
Absolutely.
Very, very few entries at this point are Oryx directly dictating something, or one of the sisters directly saying something. It's a lot of, these are the words of our, not to try and make light of it, but like they are literally writing this as in, these are the words of our Lord and Savior Oryx, essentially.
Right. No, absolutely. That's and it's interesting, and we talked about this before too. We're seeing a lot of parallels between religions and this text of writing. It's neat to me to be able to say this is the comparison that we have, and this is something in real world existence that we can compare it to, and say this is whether, and we try to be as politically correct, I guess, as we can be. And religion's always a hard thing to talk about and dance about, but I like that we have this Hive version. I don't know what to call it anymore. It's not really the Hive version of religion, but it's the Hive as a religion.
Yeah, like it's interesting in that. Yeah, it's not necessarily that the Hive culture has a religion called the Books of Sorrow or called Sword Logic. It's that the entire Hive culture is built on the religion of Sword Logic. And it to the point where it is their social structure.
Yeah, it's very symbiotic there. It's very one doesn't exist without the other. Mm-hmm. Right, like Sword Logic doesn't exist without the Hive, and the Hive doesn't exist without Sword Logic. So it's this, as much as we call it like the religion of the Hive, the Hive itself is the religion too. So it's blowing my mind. Yeah. But so what? I'm trying to understand this 10 pacing thing. I'm assuming this is like some type of breakdown of time, right? Like,
I think so.
In the first year he attacked the moons, and in the second year they did blah 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 blah. That's what I'm taking all of this as.
Yeah, no, I think that's exactly what it is. It's a very dramatized telling of the Hive's subjugation and extinction of this Tashabeth race.
And I guess the silly question is like, what is the importance of this specific race being extinct? Because there have been tons of races that there was the whole like the Federation style galactic people of I don't remember their names, but we talked about them. I think it was in the last episode. Where they got together and they're like, "Hey, we got to stop the Hive," and they almost did, until Oryx was like, "Nah, I'm gonna do better than that," and then comes back with the power to take, and then just mows through them and decimates like 50 something races out of 500 and something races. Like so this isn't the first species to be eradicated by Oryx and his sisters.
No, not at all. I think maybe this is I think there's two pieces that are important in particular for this. I think it's a way to show how far they have come with Oryx's new power, the power to take, because they fought the Ecumene, where it was the previous race.
That's what it was. Yep.
And very nearly
That was like the Galactic Alliance.
Yeah, and were stopped, and very very nearly were the Hive were almost ended by this group. And now the very next battle we are told about is this battle with the Tashabeth, and the Tashabeth are led by this this Emperor Raven, and they're saying the Emperor Raven was powerful enough to single-handedly destroy a Hive war moon, which is literally a moon. Like it's.
I was trying to say it's when they say Hive war moon, it is exactly that. It's like if they took. I mean, that's literally when we in game go to our moon, that's what they're trying to do to our moon. They're trying to turn it into a war moon.
Yep, they essentially take a planet or take a moon and turn it into a small battleship, and that's how they've been going around the galaxies up till this point. And this Emperor Raven is able to, destroy one of those war moons and wipe it out. And just to show the kind of like power scale that they're up against. And this time Oryx goes, "That's cute," and then takes this Emperor Raven. And
that's I think the powerful part
yes.
there is I mean to not just because like with the Ecumene, like he was going through and taking them as he was going, and then finally kind of like everything collapses in on itself there because they're just losing forces left and right. This one, he just comes right out the gate and like, all right, head official, boom, taken.
Yep.
Now what?
Your leader is now like, mine, and they're gonna come and help us kill everybody.
Yeah. And so then it says, I mean, at least for Oryx and his sisters and the rest of the Hive, this is just a joke now. Like the power to take is such a powerful thing. And now at the end of that 4.0, it talked about the darkness.
Yeah, and I think this is.
Are they fighting in the darkness, or are they?
So not in the darkness, I don't believe. But I think this is the other piece as to why this particular entry is important. So Oryx says, "We have conquered our way to the edge of the deep. It whispers to me when I call on it, and it guides my flight. It says we are at its threshold and that I should come inside." I think perhaps the Tibethi or Tashabeth, excuse me, may have been the literal defenders of the end of the universe.
I think you're right.
And that now with them gone, Oryx can can travel is more accurate to the end of the universe, and that's where there's a connection to the deep.
A physical connection.
A physical connection.
We're talking. This is because before when they were talking to the worm gods in Fundament, we theorized a lot that maybe there was a gateway there or something that possibly connected to the deep, and that maybe they weren't talking to the worms, or maybe they were talking to a worm, and the rest of them weren't actually there, and that they were all in deep. And so this is an actual like. We've reached the edge of the universe, and the next step to take is into the deep.
That's how I read it, and I think that makes a lot of sense considering what we know about Callus as well, because Callus, when he was exiled aboard the Leviathan, it drifted into, I'm trying to remember the exact terminology. I think it said that it drifted into uncharted space to the darkest part of the universe, and that's where Callus supposedly had a meeting with the darkness, the entity, and that's what gave him some great revelation that turned him into the Callus we know or knew prior to the Glycon.
Right.
Maybe the only reason Callus was able to even get to that area of the universe and commune at all was because Oryx had already wiped out this race that was previously kind of the protectors of.
That's an interesting theory too. That like if these truly were the protectors of the deep or of the darkness, like now anyone can essentially just go there.
If they have the means to do so, maybe.
Yeah. Interesting.
But so Oryx ends this verse by literally saying, "I'm gonna go talk to the darkness. I'm at its threshold. I'm gonna go talk to it."
Burb.
Yeah, yeah. And then that leads us into verse 4:1, which is titled "Battle Made Waves." It's a very short verse. Oryx went down into his throne world. He went out into the abyss, and with each step he read one of his tablets, so that they became like stones beneath his feet. He went out and he created an altar, and he prepared an unborn ogre. He called on the deep, saying, "I can see you in the sky. You are the waves which are battles, and the battles which are waves. Come into this vessel I have prepared for you." And it arrived, the deep itself. So,
holy cow. He literally called the deep into an ogre.
He literally called the deep into an ogre, very similarly to how Callus was trying to call the deep into the Scorn aboard the Glycon.
Holy cow.
For the same reason, essentially, to commune, to talk to the darkness, the entity, the deep, the entity, and succeeded.
Yeah.
Now
I think that's the you can preach and say and do and everything. It's when you actually succeed that's when it's like, oh shit. Yeah. This got real quick. So for him to call upon the darkness and to say, "Hey, I got a body here. I just need you to use it to talk to me."
Yep.
And the darkness go, "All right,
we'll have a conversation." Now here's a fun little thing. I don't have any direct threads here, but I think there's a theme that's interesting to think about. So Oryx uses an unborn ogre as the vessel for the deep to commune with him. So unborn to me means not living, is not yet alive. We see.
But where do ogres rank in the Hive hierarchy?
Well, if I remember correctly, and now I'm going to look that up. Ogres are kind of like a sick Hive experiment.
That's what I thought. It's like cursed thralls. Like cursed thralls aren't supposed to be. Cursed thralls aren't naturally born.
Yeah. Let's see what here. All ogres begin as unborn, awaiting the time when they will be called by the Hive wizards for a rebirthing ritual. After this, they are known as reborn and possess greater strength, intelligence, and arcane abilities.
Is that why their eye beam is a melee attack?
Yeah, I think so.
Fucking bullshit is what that is.
Says ogres are giant members of the Hive. Guardians have little information on ogres, given that few survive encounters with the beasts. Warlocks believe that they are the product of unusual rituals. These creatures are driven by unimaginable pain, even enabling them to escape their creator's control. So, from what I remember and what this seems to be supporting, is that ogres are like they took a thrall or some member of the Hive and essentially tortured it with rituals until it turned into an ogre, and like an ogre's very existence is just immense pain.
Just continual torture and torment.
Yeah. Which is why they yell
Which
at us all the
now,
time and shoot I-beams.
well, not just that. Does this give us credence to um, essentially what is green magic?
Oh, you mean like well, it presumably, based on what I'm seeing here, and I'm using the Destinypedia at the moment as the source. If ogres are created with a ritual,
Remember, kids, you can use anything you want as long as you cite your
that's
references.
right.
Because then it's no longer copyright infringement.
If ogres are created through a ritual, a hive ritual, what we learned from previously in the Books of Sorrow is that all hive rituals are essentially ways for the hive to ask favors of the darkness.
Right. It's their version of science, but since it can't be explained in words, it's therefore magic.
Right. Uh, so the ogres seem to be essentially I read them as they're unborn until they go through this ritual, at which case they're turned into the ogres that we know them as.
And I think that leads credence to the scientific experimentation idea, right?
Yeah.
Like what else would explain it other than a science experiment?
So if we're to operate under the assumption then that these unborn ogres are dead or not living in the traditional sense. And
I think not living is a better explanation, because dead implies that they were alive before.
that's true.
And
Yeah.
I truly think of them as just what would you call it? Abominations, just piles of junk,
Yeah.
and then they're like, okay, breathe life into it. Boom, now it's alive.
Yeah, my internal visualization for this is that there's some weird little amalgamation in like a test tube until one of
Yeah.
the wizards decides, okay, we need to make an ogre, and they put the test tube on an altar, do whatever they do, and you get an ogre at the end of it.
Yeah.
I don't know that that's accurate, but that's just kind of how I visualize it. In
I mean,
my
we
head.
can use that as accurate. Yeah.
But no, so the thread that I'm trying to follow here, Oryx communes with the darkness using an unborn ogre as a host, which we're going to make the assumption is not living.
Yes.
Callus uses Scorn to commune with the darkness, albeit not as successfully as Oryx does here. But he does succeed in getting the darkness channeled into the Scorn. The Scorn are undead, fallen.
Yep.
The times that we have talked to the darkness directly in some fashion, it is being channeled through a mirror of our guardian, who is undead.
Ooh.
Now, I don't have any grand revelation for what that might mean, but it's an interesting pattern.
Well, we always talked about how the darkness is all about. Well, it's funny because we always say the darkness is all about death, and the light is always about resurrection. Maybe it's the other way around.
I don't know that death and resurrection per se are the most accurate descriptors.
I really don't think they are. Like that's the best I can think of off the top of my head, but I don't really have a good.
I think if we're gonna take those concepts and try to apply some different verbiage to it, the darkness is about finite ends, and the light is about
There you go.
perpetuation.
There you go. About yes. Okay. Yes. I like that idea. I like that idea of it being an end or a continuation, and not just like a minuscule continuation, like a infinite continuation.
Yes.
Oh, I like this. I like this.
So, we have in the next verse, supposedly, what the darkness said to Oryx through this unborn ogre. And I have to laugh because it is written so very differently than everything else. And I've kind of
Really?
noticed this every time we talk to the darkness, or the darkness is brought up, be it in like the Truth to Power lore book, or through the cutscenes where, you know, we're your savior, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Darkness always kind of comes off as a cheeky bastard, and
Right?
the same thing can be said here.
Like darkness always seems like it's full of itself.
Yeah, yeah, a little bit.
Like it's so convinced that it is the greatest thing in the history of anything.
So what we have is verse 4-2, titled Majestic, Majestic. And this is seemingly written from the point of view of the darkness to Oryx. It says, Oryx, my king, my friend, kick back, relax, shrug off that armor, set down that blade, roll your burdened shoulders and let down your guard. This is a place of life, a place of peace. Out in the world, we ask a simple, true question. A question like, can I kill you? Can I rip your world apart? Tell me the truth, for if I don't ask, someone else will ask it for me, will ask it of me. And they call us evil. Evil. Evil means socially maladaptive, and we are adaptiveness itself. Ah, Oryx, how do we explain it to them? The world is not built on the laws they love, not on friendship, but on mutual interest, not on peace, but on victory by any means. The universe is run by extinction, by extermination, by gamma ray bursts burning 1,000 garden worlds, by howling singularities eating up infant suns. And if life is to live, if anything is to survive through the end of all things, it will live not by the smile, but by the sword, not in a soft place, but in a hard hell, not in the rotting bog of an artificial paradise, but in the cold, hard, self-verifying truth of that one ultimate arbiter, the only judge, the power that is its own metric and its own source, existence at any cost. Strip away the lies and the truces and the delaying tactics they call civilization, and this is what remains, this beautiful shape. The fate of everything is made like this in the collision, the test of one praxis against another. This is how the world changes. One way meets a second way, and they discharge their weapons, they exchange their words and markets, they contest, and in doing so, they petition each other for the right to go on being something instead of nothing. This is the universe figuring out what it should be in the end. And it is majestic. Majestic. It is the only thing that can be true in and of itself. And it is what I am. And that's the end of that verse.
Holy cow.
So
That's
it's the darkness essentially spinning sword logic. It's a repeat.
that's really what I got from it. Like especially that later half of it. Like when it's talking about how two forces meet and then they war, they exchange weapon fire, they exchange markers, they exchange ideas, and then whatever the outcome is the like that's what survived. That was the better of the two. That one's that thing that exists at the end of it is the better, is the winner of the sword logic.
Yeah.
And therefore is quote unquote allowed to live on, right? Like that's like yeah.
The darkness's point of view, and we've gone over this before, and in various different explanations, but I do like this explanation in particular in a lot of ways. Generally speaking, the darkness, the entity's belief, as they explain here, is that if there are two things in the universe, they will always combat each other until there's only one thing left. And that will keep continuing every time two things meet until there are no more two things. There's only one thing.
Yeah.
And that this entire process is natural and is the universe figuring out what it should be. What one thing it should be.
That's a genuine, like, that's an interesting thought in itself. Like, that's
a little bit, yeah.
I mean, what if the universe really is that way?
Well, and I think what makes the darkness compelling and makes the whole theory of sword logic compelling is that it's essentially just a universal, on a universal scale, survival of the fittest, which is a natural theory that we can see play out even on our own planet, in outside of the Destiny universe. So it's not that unbelievable that someone could hold like that view, and that view is happening across multiple worlds and galaxies and all that,
across dimensions.
Yeah. So,
like, that's like oh, okay. Now I just had a thought. Is that the truth? Because when we talk about different dimensions, like the deep and the sky and our world and the stack of coins that we talked about in the ascended plane, and shifting left and shifting right, and our world exists and our plane exists because of the physics that enact it, and the nine don't understand that, so they have to have their ways to interpret that, and it is the truth, if that idea of survival of the fittest exists across all planes of existence, is that the truth that Savathun speaks of?
Yeah, I mean, we could attribute it to a lot of things. Is kind of what it comes down to. Like, there's a lot of different theories out there that we could speculate on, and be here longer than we probably would be otherwise.
Till like next year.
Yeah, until way after Witch Queen is out.
Yes.
But it's an interesting thought, and I think this is probably one of the most concise tellings of what the theory of the darkness is, and what the theory of sword logic, as the Hive know it, is.
And at the end of the day, the darkness, being the arrogant self that it is, does speak in riddles. Like, I don't know that it's 100% riddles, but everything that he's saying, or everything it is saying, everything the darkness is saying, is left up to interpretation by Oryx, and whatever Oryx wants it to sound like. Like, it's perception is everything, right? So that's for the darkness to say something in one sense, and to Oryx go, oh, well, you see, this is sword logic. See, final shape, da 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 da. Fight, two become one, and that one becomes, or two clash, and then one survives, and that one goes on. That's the better of the two. So, and less of a two clash, and maybe they both go on, but not in the same sense that they were before. They've each adopted ideas and beliefs and thoughts of the other side, and now the new thing that has been created is by definition a new thing, and the thing that goes on because the original two don't exist anymore.
So I think that's a really interesting way of thinking about it, that a clash between two doesn't A and B meet, party A and party B meet and have conflict. It doesn't always mean that, like, one party has to lose, party B loses and party A continues. A and B could become C, could become an entire different group in and of themselves with their own philosophies and their own, decisions based on the conflict of A and B. I don't think that's what the darkness is going for in their explanation, though.
Sure.
I think that's a really interesting way to interpret it, and I really like that idea, actually, as a counterpoint to what they're saying.
Well, and the whole idea with that behind that was the whole idea that Close Spray had. If clarity was introduced to something, that new something became a totally different thing and could never go back to what it was before. So in sword logic thought and in darkness thought, I hesitate to add that in there, but yeah, in darkness thought, once darkness has introduced itself to two things, that new thing has become a third thing and can't go back to what it is before. And I like that. I really do.
Yeah, I think as
much as I feel like that's not what's being presented here.
Yeah,
that's what I like that interpretation of it.
Yeah, I like that idea, but I think you're correct. That's not what's being presented here. They're saying that things will not live in a soft place but a hard hell, not in the rotting bog of an artificial paradise, but in the cold, hard, self-serving truth of that one ultimate arbiter, the only judge, the power that is its own metric and its own source, existence at any cost. So there, and it goes on to say that civilization is a delaying tactic. To develop a civilization that relies on peace and art and trade and all of those things that we might see as being a successful existence. They're saying all that really is a delaying of the inevitable. To pretend to have a civilization is just people preventing, delaying the clash that is going to come eventually, to decide, which side has the right to exist. But yeah, so.
Yeah, no, 100%.
So this is the darkness's statement to Oryx. And we don't get any kind of response or interpretation from Oryx. We just get this statement made by the darkness, and that's it. To kind of do with as we see fit.
Interpret as you will, mere mortals. And interpret we shall.
So that leads us into verse 4:3, which is, when do monsters have dreams? And this one seems to be from the point of view of Oryx again. This is like almost a journal entry back to kind of the original verses here. It says, I'm walking down the road. I'm going to the orrery to talk to my dad, and I hear this noise, so I look back. And my sisters are behind me, and they're ripping up the road. They've got these huge swords, execution swords, and they're levering the stones out of the road. The stones are covered in writing. They're like tablets, and there's dirt underneath, full of worms. I need to get to the orrery before they catch up to me, so I start running, but right away someone trips me. It's my dad. He's got his foot out and he grabs me by the horns and just slams me down on my face. I'm in so much pain, I nearly throw up a worm. Why weren't you ready for this? He says. He's wearing glare goggles, those shiny goggles that he'd used to save his vision during lightning storms or sea fire. All three of his eyes reflect me. Didn't you know they'd be jealous because they couldn't come to the orrery and talk to me? Didn't you know they'd move against you? I start wailing like I'm 2 days old again, and I say, I thought you were my friend. I'm supposed to be safe here. But he just puts out his fist, and I realize he's laughing at me for believing him. Why did I think I'd be safe? In his fist he's got a black sun, and he holds me by the throat and goes to tip the black sun inside of me. I can see my jaws in his goggles, 3 reflections of my jaws with so many teeth. So I start eating. I bite huge pieces out of him and I claw him up. I eat his legs and I eat his arms and his goggles and his eyes, and he says, good, good. This is majestic and true. But my sisters are still tearing up the road, so I don't know how to get back. So this one's a little more interpretive.
The one part of the whole thing that sticks out to me is that majestic part, right? Like that's
I think this is Oryx trying to express his regret for taking the deal with the worms.
100%.
Yeah.
I think that he is looking at this idea of, you know, if this grand idea of if I, you know, what if I hadn't, you know, and and then for him to devour his father in his dream, like that's, and I that's what I think. I think all of this is a dream.
Yeah, I think so too.
That he's having,
especially based on the title of the verse, "When do monsters have dreams?"
Yeah,
I think that is what this is.
And I think Oryx himself having the regret, but then his sisters just continuously, like the thought of them tearing up the road is the whole idea of, you know, they're the ones pushing me forward. They're the whole reasons I can't go back.
Yeah.
Like, yep. and Oryx tried to stop once before too, and Savathun was like, nah, you can't. No, we're down this path. This is it. This is us. This is eternity. And it for Oryx to see that level of regret, and then to have that, like, I mean, to have the image of his father shove a black sun down his throat, which I interpret as like a blight, you know, like a darkness blight.
Yeah, I think that's probably representative of the power of the darkness through the worms. You know, he's ingesting this black sun. Seems to be, you know, kind of a symbology for it taking the larvae of the worms into them.
Yeah. Yep. And then for him to devour his dad, like it to me, that's the idea of like everything that he was before as a krill is gone. Like that's there's so little left of what would have been Alrosh?
Yeah.
Before it was Oryx. So there's so little left of Alrosh that it's impossible to go back, and to have his sisters continually chewing up the road behind him to delete the way back is very telling too, that he does have some form of regret.
Yeah.
Whatever that is.
No, I think so.
This really humanizes Oryx. Like this is
No, he was a lot more complex of a character than what may have first appeared. You know, he wasn't just a dude hell-bent on conquering the universe. Like he came off as that to me, of like, oh, big bad baddie, we got to shut him down. And like with this verse, he's very much like, shit, man, I fucked up. Yeah.
Now how do I fix this? And to have no way to fix it, to look back and see his sisters pushing him forward, to removing the way back. Man, that's got to be heartbreaking.
Yeah. Well, and I think so. We go then into verse 4:4, and I think it's him justifying to himself why he can't or shouldn't go back. So verse 4:4 again. This is from Oryx's point of view, kind of like journal entry style. Uh, Titled "More Beautiful to Know," and it says, "Sometimes I wonder if I'm a nihilist. I don't do much except break things. That's what they say about me. We could have had a great civilization if it weren't for that damn Oryx, that damn Hive. They don't believe in anything but death. The only way to make something good is to make something that can't be broken. And the only way to do that is to try to break everything. I'm glad I learned that the universe runs on death. It's more beautiful to know. But I'm lost somewhere strange. I think that Savathun and Xivu Arath are trying to steal the tablets from me. They must have cut off my tribute while I was away communing with the deep. I love them so dearly. No one else is clever or strong enough to try to break me. No one else can give me this gift. Once, long ago, I killed Xivu Arath on her war moon, and she blew up the whole moon to kill me with her. She was laughing in joy, and I laughed too. A whole moon. A whole moon. It was a waste of a moon, but it taught me how to save myself from exploding worlds, which was necessary to fight the Ecumene. I love mighty Xivu more than a moon loves the tide. I will kill her for this, over and over, forever and ever. When I get home from my wanderings in the deep, and I take back my throne, I'm going to have children. That's what I need. Sons and daughters to love and to kill." Oryx is messed up.
Wow. Dude, that's my first thought at the end of that was like, dude's gone insane. He's lost it. He's completely like it's Jesus.
So my I guess one interpretation I can take from this, in conjunction with the previous statement about, his sisters digging up the road behind him, preventing him from going back, is that he kind of almost in like a Stockholm syndrome way, has decided that the expression of love is synonymous with trying to conquer the other, trying to have that conflict between parties, and seeing who's stronger is some twisted way of showing that you care about them, because you believe that they could, that they're worthy to test their existence against yours.
I like that idea, because that then coincides with the sword logic, right?
Yeah, and I think that's
like that's like a I mean, you put it best, a Stockholm syndrome way of expressing the sword logic.
Yeah, and that's kind of the feeling I get, is just he has lived in this world for so long that despite having some deep-seated regrets to how he ended up here, whether he realizes he has those regrets or not, honestly, he has decided that like this is what it means to exist. And
that's right. Like I'm curious if it's like that acceptance, right? Like, it's almost like seeing him go through depression.
A little bit, yeah.
You see the level of denial. Oh, no, what we're doing is right. Then moving on to regret, like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have done that. And now he's at the point of acceptance, like, well, this is how life is. This is it.
Yeah.
That's an issue. There, man, he is complex.
No, he is quite the character.
And now he's like, I want to have babies so I can kill them over and over again.
Yeah, which is twisted.
That's like on a like, right, like that's like to him, like that's like a, okay, that makes sense, right? Like that's like a, okay, yeah, that's Oryx. That's what Oryx would do. That's if that's how sword logic works and that's how you express your love, that's, yeah, no, that makes sense. But sort of like the outside reader of going, you want to have babies just so you can kill them over and over again?
Like, what the hell,
That's
man?
what the hell? What the hell's going on? Yeah. Do you need someone to talk to? Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah. So this leads us into verse 4-5, which is
Well,
titled...
we're blazing through these verses tonight.
We are. This one's titled "This Love Is War," and this is from the perspective of Xivu Arath to Oryx.
Sounds like it could be like an 80s song, like "This Love Is War." No.
There's probably a song out there with that title. Let's be honest.
All right, I'm going to Google it. You read, I'll Google.
All right. So this one starts. Betrayal. We have marooned Oryx within the deep. This is our obligation as lords of the Hive, to make war upon each other, to eradicate weakness and make ourselves sharp. Obligations. Once I permitted Oryx to kill me so that he could gain the sword logic and overcome Akka, our god. This left me trapped deep within my throne. But Oryx, my brother, made war upon the Ecumene, and in that war he described me, for I too am war. Thus I was resurrected. Resurrection. Savathun and I conspired to strand Oryx on his expedition, but I secretly believe that I will be stronger with Oryx to war against. Thus I describe him. A description of Oryx. When Oryx looks upon you, you feel that you may vanish if he looks away. The crest of Oryx's skull is as long as an arm. In the course of its life, a thought moves from one end to the other. Upon his crest I have painted a line in my blood so that he will remember me. Each of Oryx's fangs has the precision of a finger and the acuity of an eye. Although he was born at the bottom of the universe and taught to burrow, Oryx has grown wings. The light of wildfire shines through them. Oryx teaches, but he will not be taught. Oryx's body is corded with strength. His sinew and muscles are as strong as his children, and his children are the strength of him. Oryx wears a raiment of worm silk made from the cowl of gods. The voice of Oryx may cause two different numbers to become equal. Oryx, my brother, is the bravest thing I know. Upon fundament, he learned that we were the natural prey of the universe, the most frail and desperate of things. He thought about this carefully, and he found a way to fix it. He made us strong. He will lead us into eternity. Oryx, my brother, loves me, and this love is war.
Well, good news, bad news.
Uh-oh.
It's actually an anime.
I totally knew that.
So,
oh my god.
Yeah. Now you're like, well, crap. Yeah, no 80s song though.
That's
kind of bummed about that.
That's unfortunate.
But yeah, description of Oryx, that's pretty spot on as what we've seen. Wings, crazy strength, super tall, super big.
Yep.
I mean, hell, when we fought him in Kingsfall, he was literally the size of the Leviathan. Like,
yeah.
His whole head was bigger than all of us Guardians. Like, that's, everything about this seems legit. And there's one in line in there. To make two numbers equal each other, two different numbers equal each other. That speaks to like the will of Oryx, right? Like that's because he wills it, therefore it is. That's the whole Ayat thing, right? Like that's
Yeah,
yeah, no, this is
it's interesting. So Xivu Arath kind of expands a little bit on maybe how you could see conflict and death between Hive as an expression of love, because by fighting them and trying to kill them, you are helping them eradicate their own weakness. You are making them stronger by being in this struggle.
sure.
And if you believe that strength is the ultimate decider on whether or not you should exist, you are, in a weird, twisted way, helping them to continue to exist, continue to qualify to exist, I guess.
There it is. I like that. I like that. Qualify to exist.
So,
Qualify to exist in sense of the sword logic.
yes,
Like
yeah.
yeah. I like that. I really like that.
Yeah, so that kind of, and it just reiterates that yes, Xivu Arath and Savathun tried to strand Oryx in the deep. But it almost sounds like
I was going to say
Xivu Arath.
did they actually
Well,
did they actually succeed? It sounded like they succeeded with this
yeah,
one.
they say we have marooned Oryx within the deep. But it sounds like Xivu Arath secretly, without Savathun knowing, presumably, which is kind of embarrassing for the god of cunning and trickery.
For the god of trickery. Yeah.
Xivu Arath says, I secretly believe that I will be stronger with Oryx to war against, thus I describe him. And her description of him is so that he can be resurrected. Even
That's
after
what I was
their
thinking
betrayal.
too. Like, yep, that was the exact thought that I had there too. Was that because she is like describing him so perfectly, so exactly, that is how he can continue to exist.
Yeah.
That to where if he was just completely erased from everything, from all of existence, from all of history, from all of everything, because there is a description of him, he can therefore exist on, which I think is similar to how Mara was able to rebuild herself after dying,
Yeah, I'd have to go back
because
and read.
all of the awoken people had a very exact thought of how Mara was and how Mara is, and her looks and everything about her. She presented herself as being this, perfect being almost, and for her to have that thought for her to have presented herself that way in so many people's heads now creates a universal truth,
Yeah. Yeah,
So yeah,
I'd have to go back and read exactly that bit of I don't remember if that's in Maracena or if that's a different book, where she becomes herself again, in the
wills
Sea
her
of
atoms
Screams.
into existence.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'd have to go back and read that to see if there's any indication of exactly how she, goes about that. But I think it's probably very similar, because even Xivu says, that Oryx killed her, which trapped her in her throne. But he made war upon the Ecumene, and in that war he described Xivu Arath, and through that description she was resurrected. So
Yeah.
yeah, it seems to be that if you as a hive can perfectly describe another hive that has a throne world and their soul is still in that throne world, then they can use that description as a means of resurrecting into the that plane of existence.
Yep. Yep.
So yeah. That leads us to verse 4-6, which
Jesus, we really are blazing through these tonight.
we're getting through these pretty well.
This is weird.
I know I keep looking at the clock and I keep being surprised that it's not later than it is.
Yeah, no, like we always joked, especially in these first couple of deals. And well, I guess that I think we're having a better understanding of kind of like the Hive in general. Like we're really starting to meet up more and more where we've seen a lot of this presented to us in game. So it's to be able to have an actual, you know, I don't want to call it a physical thing in front of us because obviously it's all just digital existence.
Right.
But for us as the Guardian to have something like this presented to us, and for us as the player to be able to see that and have some sort of reference for it and everything, like I think that's interesting.
So we get some interesting tidbits in this next verse. This is verse 4-6, titled Eater of Hope. You are Crota, my son. Welcome. I fought my way out of hell to make you. I fought my traitor siblings, and I fought the swarming corpse of Akka, and I cut my way back into my own court, the high war which had been usurped. Once I had made war on Savathun and crippled her tribute so that she could never challenge me, and once I had tricked Xivu Arath and poisoned her tribute so that she could never again try to take my tablets, and once I had arranged my own lineages so that I would be greatest amongst the Hive and secure on my throne, then I found a mother to make spawn. One of those spawn was you. Your life will be a battle too. You will have to win your place at the high war. I will give you nothing except this, your first sword, and this name that I have prepared for you. We fight a war against false hope, Crota. We chase a god called the Traveler, a huckster god who baits young life into building houses for it. These houses are unsafe, for they cannot stand against my hive, and these houses are a trap, for they lead young life away from the blade and the tooth, which are the tools of survival and means of ascension. Only when the Traveler is extinguished will the universe be free to arrange itself and assume by ruthless contest its final perfect shape, a shape which depends on nothing but itself. Thus I name you Crota, Eater of Hope. There is an oath upon me, Crota, my son, an oath against the wretched Tauix. This I do not give to you. It is for me, your father, to bear. Let us go and meet your aunts and uncles.
So we have the birth of Crota.
We have the birth of Crota. A couple of interesting tidbits here, actually, outside of Crota. So not only did they trap Oryx in the deep successfully, he had to fight his way out of the deep, back to the Ascendant Plane, and then fight both Xivu Arath and Savathun and their entire horde, which had taken over his throne world, the High War, in order to kind of reclaim his throne. And not only did he fight them, he crippled their tribute to the point where they could never rise to try and usurp him again. And then
Oryx might be a lot more powerful than we're giving him credit for.
And then he arranged his own lineages so that none would ever, so that he would remain the greatest of the Hive. So he presumably arranged lineages. Sounds like eugenics.
Oh, absolutely. 100%.
He guaranteed at a genetic level that there would never be another Hive as strong as him.
That's mind-blowing.
There's
that's also a little like what would you call that? Megalomaniac ish.
Yeah, it has some interesting implications as well. So if he has crippled the tribute for Savathun and Xivu Arath so that they would never become able to challenge him again, presumably that crippling is still in effect. Whatever he did was permanent.
That was my thought when you said that. So I mean, obviously that has lots of implications.
Yeah.
In current Destiny and in current day Destiny.
So that might be a reasoning, an additional reasoning to Savathun trying to get out of this pact with the worms, because
Yeah,
she can literally never get as powerful as Oryx was, and we already beat Oryx. So she may see that as not an avenue to take anymore.
that's an interesting thought too. Like if oh man, that is an interesting thought because that just leads more. Oh man,
And Xivu Arath in the same way, she will, if she's still crippled the way that I think they're implying, then again Xivu Arath will never reach the power level of Oryx, and we already beat Oryx. So like I don't.
that's genuinely mind blowing. Like what does that say about the light versus dark?
Well, and not just that Xivu and Savathun will never reach the power level of Oryx. Oryx at least seems to imply that no Hive ever will
None.
reach the power that he did.
Not a single hive. Like the fact that we're talking about a genetically altering, at least that's the way I'm interpreting it, is genetically altering the entirety of the hive and the rest of everything to never be able to reach his strength.
Yeah.
And then to cripple his sisters, who are the only two that I would think would be at his level of strength and his level of power, because having killed each other over and over and over and over and over again, to create that strength, for him to just like cut that in half and be like, nah, you think you're stronger, you will never be stronger. You will never be equal. You will never be better. You will always be below me. That's a kind of a mind fuck there.
A little bit. Which, I mean, I guess the question becomes, what is the implication for the Hive as a whole then? Because if
we beat the strongest thing of it.
Yeah, if Oryx was and will always be the strongest Hive to ever exist now, or, since he was around and in the future, and he's been defeated, does that mean the Hive will never be able to defeat us? Do they? Granted, I know video game, we're always going to be stronger than the Hive because we pop their heads all the time. But from an in-universe perspective, this lends a lot more gravity to the death of Oryx for the Hive.
It really
people,
does,
because that was kind of a statement to the Hive that you will literally never be powerful enough to deal with us. And I kind of,
that truly does, like, I think that makes the light versus dark such a bigger deal than what even Destiny makes it out to be. Like it always has been the great battle between the sky and the deep, and we as guardians wield the light, but we have a little bit of darkness in us, so we can wield the dark too, and then the darkness is like, nah, we're your salvation. Everything about you is a perversion of everything. Like, yeah, no, that's and for us to be able to say, hey, we beat the strongest thing that you could throw at us. There's not much else you can throw at us.
So,
or in this sense, we have literally beat the strongest thing the strongest thing ever.
Yeah.
And you, like, man, that really does. That's a mind-blowing thought right there.
So the other thing that I think is worthy of note in this passage here, previously, when referencing the traveler, they've referenced a traveler. In this instance, they say, we chase a god called the Traveler. So I don't know if that's an editing error, or if it's intentional that they switch between a being one of multiple and the as in the one and only. and
Or
what
is it
the
like the last
implication might be
traveler?
there. Maybe the last that could be. Uh,
That's what I'm curious about. Have they actually come across some of the other travelers that we theorized existed before as the equivalency to the pyramid ships, right? Like,
right. Yeah.
is our traveler the last traveler? Is that the last connection to the light?
Yeah. Very very well may be. On one hand, I don't expect them to just come out and say it if that is the case. On the other hand, that seems like a pretty big thing to omit in the books, in the Hive religious text, the conquering of other
Yeah.
travelers. Uh,
Because I mean been their whole journey, right? Is to like get rid of the sky,
right.
like
Yeah.
yeah, for them to have possibly omitted killing every single traveler they've come across. Now there's only one.
Yeah. I feel like there would be other reference to that if that were the case.
Yeah, me too.
So who knows? But at least at this point in time, they're referring to it as the traveler. But yeah, so then we get into verse 4-7, titled Shapes and Points. And this is still from the point of view of Oryx. He says, "Look at you. Already you are grown, my daughter. Already you are a wizard. Have I been away so long? Now you are Anuk, and Savathun cackles and rages at your brilliance. You have written 11 axioms describing the ascendant places, our throne world. You have announced that you will kill one of these axioms, as Akka would kill the truth, and in mantling Akka, you will become a god as I am. If you try it, I may kill you, or I may applaud. Well done. I brought you this bitter acid for your celebrations. And you, Halak, you are a wizard too, as is the way of twins. I have been with Xivu Arath, who complains that you have made a song and sung it in her throne world and killed everyone who listened, quite irrevocably. Well, we have songs instead of Will we have songs instead of swords and boomers? What have you made for me? It is a tooth shaped like death. I will keep it in my mouth. What have you written for me? It is the course of the Nikah thought ship. I will track it down. I made you by cutting one larvae in half. It would not die. Each half grew into one of you. My sword is named Willbreaker, but it never broke you." So for anyone...
So these are the twins from King's Fall.
Yep, these are the twins from King's Fall, Anuk and Halak, being described as significantly more powerful and impressive here than I thought they were in the raid.
Right, like they're kind of meh in the raid, because don't you fight them right before you fight Oryx?
Yeah, they're the fight right before Oryx.
Like they really are meh.
Which, is what it is. But yeah, he's describing Anuk as having, mapping out the Ascendant Planes and having grand ideas to kill a god and ascend to the same level as Oryx.
Yep.
And he's talking about Haluk as being, I think, the first Death Singer is what's being implied here. That's what I was about
to ask. Is this the first Death song?
I think so. Because Oryx says, "Xivu Arath has complained you have made a song and sung it in her throne world and killed everyone who listened. Will we have songs instead of swords and boomers?" Like, I feel like if Death songs had existed before this point, he wouldn't be asking that question.
I think this is the beginning of the Death songs for wizards.
Yeah, so I think Haluk made the first Death song.
This has a lot of implications for honestly King's Fall coming back in game.
I would love King's Fall to come back. I think it will, personally.
Like if these are as powerful, if this stuff that we're reading right now is as powerful as we're perceiving it to be, I think whatever we killed was just a I don't know, a fake.
So here's the thing. I don't think it's fake. I don't think they're implying that what we saw is not really the daughters of Oryx.
The true daughters, yeah.
I think maybe what's being implied here, some of this is because video game. Like it just is.
Right.
We got to be able to beat the big bad, because if they were so powerful we couldn't beat them, no one would enjoy that raid.
I mean, some people would.
But at the same time, we could also take this as, no, these things are terribly, incredibly powerful in the Destiny universe, but we are just that much more so when we fought them.
I was going to say, but we beat them. Like that's
right.
That to me is that is the flip side of that, right? Like that's the better answer than because video game.
Yeah.
Like these things are this powerful. They've created this thing called a death song that literally when they sing it, you die. Like it's not like poof, you're dead. It's like you're unmade from time. Mm-hmm. I don't want to say unmade from time. You're unmade from existence.
Yeah.
That's a better, because obviously the Vex have the whole time thing going for them. But yeah, it's I like that. I like that idea of these things were so powerful, and yet we beat them. Like what can't we beat as Guardians?
Mm-hmm. Which this is jumping ahead a little bit, but spoilers: we killed Oryx at the end of the Kingsfall raid.
Oh no!
But this idea kind of lends to, and I don't know if it's in this grimoire actually or not, but there's a lore card out there I'd have to find of Toland the Shattered, who was there and watched our showdown with Oryx and watched us beat him, and the grimoire card is him seeing our victory and then just shouting at us because we're walking away and not taking the throne, because we are not assuming our rightful place as, king/queen of the Hive and of the sword logic, as we should be by defeating Oryx.
But Toland is nuts.
Oh, Toland is batshit insane. But he's also not wrong when it comes to things in the Hive.
I guess if like the only other person that I feel like would have any other type of insight to the Hive would be Eris, right? Like between Eris and Toland, those are the two most connected to the Hive. Like
absolutely.
Every other person of that 6-man team is gone. There's nothing left of them. Toland, being as shattered as he is, and only existing in the ascendant plane, and as a little blip on the screen in front of us, and Eris, who I'm pretty sure is walking around the universe with an Ahamkara bone in her hand, wishing to continue, and that's how like it's. We're gonna have to talk about her one day. But yeah, no, like it Toland is nuts.
Yes, he's absolutely nuts. So yeah, this brings us to verse 4:8, which again is.
If we get through all of 4 tonight, I'm going to be incredibly impressed.
We might do it.
This is nuts. This is. I don't even think we got through all of 1 on the first night.
No, we did not.
I didn't think so.
So 4:8, the partition.
Look at us. This is the power of taking a break, people.
That's right. We're back and we are motivated, and
we are motivated. We're efficient. We are.
Don't expect this for more than one episode.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So, verse 4:8, the partition of death. One day, Oryx decided to grow new wings. While he wrestled with his worm, he came upon his twin daughters dying in a wound between places. "What are you doing, my daughters?" he asked. He was afraid that Ir Haluk and Ir Anak were trying to go into the deep, where only the tablets of ruin allowed Oryx to go. "We are dying, father," they said, "as many times as we can manage." "That's adorably precious." Oryx shook out his new wings. "But why?" "We propose a method by which ascendant souls can be detached and integrated into a tautological and autonomous thanatosphere, which we tentatively term an oversoul. Oversouls can be stored in a throne world as a mechanism of enhanced death resilience. As a side effect, new refinements to our death song may be achieved, moving us closer to a generally effective paracausal death impulse. Oryx brandished his sword. "Speak the royal tongue, or I will pin you up for ire to eat." "If we can separate our deaths from ourselves and hide them, we will be harder to kill." Oryx went to his son Crota. "Go keep an eye on your sisters," he said. "You can learn cunning from them." But while Oryx traveled to observe the deep destroy an ancient fortress world, Crota conspired with his sisters to learn their secrets. "I too will experiment with a wound," he said. With his sword, Crota cut open a new wound into a new space. In here, he thought he might obtain a secret power. Out of this wound came machines called Vex. They invaded Oryx's throne world. This is interesting.
I was thinking, this whole thing is like, first off, hey, what are you two doing? We're trying to kill ourselves over and over and over again. Well, that's cute and adorable, and I appreciate you for that. But why? I don't know. Be better. You two are weird. Hey, Crota, make sure they don't do shit while I'm gone. Okay. And don't stay up past midnight. Okay. And don't learn shit from them, because I'll know. I'm the knowing person. Okay. See you soon, Dad. Hey, what are you doing? Oh, we're just killing ourselves over and over and over again, so that way we could try to separate our deaths from ourselves and hide that death in a pocket universe where if we die, we don't actually die. Oh, cool. Can I learn that? Sure. Why not? Okay. Shing! No. What are you doing? I cut a hole, and I'm making a place. Where did you even cut a hole to? I don't know, but look, there's like little robots and shit. God damn it, Crota. This is why we can't have nice things.
This is all playing out in my head like some sitcom, like some 90s
right?
sitcom.
Well,
the part that I totally loved, or where Oryx like, "What are you doing?" And they give this long, super scientific explanation. Ascendant souls can be detached into a tautological and autonomous thanatosphere, which we tentatively term. And he literally gives them the English, please. Like,
yeah. He's like, "That's nice, but what the fuck are you talking about?"
Yeah. But
we made a thing and we're gonna do his stuff. Okay, that's cute and all, and I love you for it, but cut that shit out, or I'm gonna kill you. Like, wait, what?
So the
cut that shit out, and I'm gonna kill you and feed you to a worm god. Take that. Yeah. Where's your sword logic now, motherfucker? Yeah, that's what just played out here in front of us.
That's exactly what it was. But you take the Full House sitcom out of it, There's some really interesting
Oh,
information
too
here.
soon, Myth. Too
Oh, god
soon,
damn it. That
Myth.
was fuck.
Ah.
I didn't even cross my mind. I did hear about that news today.
As soon as you said 90s sitcom, in my head I was like, please don't say Full House, please don't say Full House, please don't say Full House. And then you said it. Oh.
I'm sorry. That
For
I
those
watched
of
a ton
you-
of that as a kid, so that's just in my mind.
Right? Like, that's the two sisters are Ashley and
Yep.
the two
Yep.
sisters. Like, that's them. And then the brother comes over and he's like, hey, what you doing? Oh, we're getting into shit. Oh, okay. Can I join? Sure. And then he screws it up and now they're all in trouble. Yeah, no, that is exactly what has been described here as an episode of Full House. And for those of you who don't know, we're recording this after the day of Bob Saget passing away in his sleep. So that is this is unintentionally the rudest thing that has happened, but also like very thematical in what is happening right now in this verse is an episode of Full House.
But you take that, take away some of the comedy aspect. There's some really interesting things here.
Oh, absolutely.
The sisters, again, they apparently were much more important characters than what they seemed in the raid encounter. They created oversouls. They figured out how to make an oversoul, which is essentially how Crota and how any of the Ascendant Hive, when we came across them, stayed alive in their throne world, or how they transitioned into their throne world after death. And I wonder if this is how the form of resurrection, Hive resurrection as we know it, came into play, and if prior to this, to be resurrected from your throne world, like, required that description that Xivu Arath talked about. And this
I think
now
you're right.
circumvents that.
I think you're right. I think this is a way to have a resurrection without having to have any type of record of what you were, because, and they describe it really English, please. They actually describe it pretty well. They're essentially hiding that death in a pocket universe.
Mm-hmm.
And in that pocket universe, that's where they're saying that, well, you didn't really die, because the death is being hidden in a pocket universe, and therefore when you die, and I put that in quotation marks, you're not actually died. You haven't actually died. Like, there's no, you're still alive, you still exist, you're still around, but now you just have an easier vessel to get in and out of death and undeath.
Yeah, so that part's really interesting. And then Oryx being, oh, well, I can do that too, and cutting a hole, and that hole just so happening to be full of Vex.
Now, so I guess that's my question. That's purely incidental. There's nothing, like, he just cut open a thing and was like, oh, I'm going to make my own pocket world and pocket universe and blah, 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 blah. And he just happened to cut into something that had Vex in it.
Which is interesting, because I feel like I have always been under the impression that he cut into that spot in particular under the direction of Savathun. But that does not
see. This is where stories
here.
are starting. Right. This is where different stories are starting to, I don't want to say conflict each other, but this is where we're trying to have a better understanding of where these different stories are lining up.
Right. So
and
now
from, at least from Crota's point of view, he just cut it open and hey, look, Vex, that sucks. But then from it could have been an influence from Savathun. Savathun could have been trying to find a way to undermine Oryx, and thus snuck this thought into Crota's head, like, hey, go check out what your sisters are doing. They're doing some crazy shit over there. Maybe you can do that too. And he's just like, okay, and just walks over. He's like, what you guys doing? And then leads into that. He's like, I can do this too. I'm curious if that is what's happening there. If we're just seeing this from another point of view, before we see it from Savathun's point of view?
I think
Or
that
is what
is
everything Savathun says an actual lie or not the truth?
so. I think I'm doing some research here. Uh,
Active research. That's
yeah.
what we call this.
So apparently we get a little more explanation in the next verse here in 4:9. But I think that's exactly what we're seeing from Oryx's point of view. He cut into a world, and it happened to have Vex in it. But in the next verse, I think we're going to get some more information from Savathun's point of view that shows that maybe there was a little more to it than that.
Well, let's jump to the next episode on Full House.
So verse 4:9.
God damn it.
Verse 4:9. Open your eyes, go into it, is the title. And it states, the Vex clattered around, constructing large problems. At first, their constructions were deranged because they didn't understand the sword logic, which defined all rules in Oryx's throne world. The geometry perplexed them. I'll cut them apart, Oryx said. But just then, the Vex ritual of better thoughts manifested a mind called Quoria, Blade Transform, and Quoria deduced the sword logic. I have to kill everything, Quoria resolved. Then I will be powerful. Crota's gate began to emit warrior Vex, huge and brassy. He leapt forward to fight them, but they blinked away. After they fled from Crota, they killed 2,000 of Oryx's acolytes and 10,000 of his thrall. Soon they had established themselves as powers in this world by right of slaughter. Come forth, sister wizards, called Ir Halak. We need you. Ir Anuk pulled a sword star out of the sky. Together, the wizards charged it with killing power and made an annihilator totem, which they used to smash the Vex. Close the wound, brother Crota, Anuk ordered. We will find a cunning way to destroy them, but only after they stop constructing problems on us. But Quoria had instanced itself to the other side of the gate, and built a holdfast to keep the way open. Quoria's objective was to exploit the paracausal physics of Oryx's throne to become divine. It organized a series of test invasions. For 100 years of local time, the siblings fought the Vex. When the Vex came into the sword world, they were inevitably annihilated. But when the Hive went to the Vex world, they lost too much of their power to win. Father is going to eat our souls, Helluck sighed. Quoria captured some worm larvae and began experimenting with them. Soon, Quoria Blade Transform manifested religious tactics. By directing worship at the worms, Quoria learned it could alter reality with mild ontopathogenic effects. Being an efficient machine, Quoria manifested a priesthood and ordered all its subminds to believe in worship. Then it set about abducting and killing dangerous organisms so it could bootstrap itself to Hive godhood. For some Vex reason, Quoria never attempted to introduce worm larvae into its mind fluid. Savathun was laughing, because she had tricked Crota into cutting into that place. This drew the attention of the worm our god. Oryx called ire, set your house in order. And that's the end of that one.
This is literally another episode of Full House. That's what's happening.
Much more
like,
violent
there is
version.
So much. Right, like this is like what if Full House, but like futuristic Death War thing, like in the middle of Transformer world. No, there's a lot going on here. Like, I mean, Quoria. is a lot more powerful than we even gave her credit for, and she was just an instance boss.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's interesting to see. So, a couple things to touch on here. We have the creation of annihilator totems. Were originally built as a means of combating the Vex, which is kind of an interesting little tidbit.
Yeah, like that's a scary thought too. Like the only way they could even kill these Vex was annihilator totems,
and that they were fighting the Vex for 100 years of local time, which I assume was 100 years within Oryx's throne world. They were fighting these Vex.
Yeah. Yep.
When the Vex came to
100 actual years, I guess would be the
but yet Quoria has a much deeper understanding of how to gain power the Hive way than I had anticipated. Like, I knew Quoria learned the sword logic. I guess what I didn't remember was that she literally made the Vex believe in religion because she figured that was a way to gain power through sword logic.
That's mind-blowing. That's genuinely mind-blowing. Like, that's mind-blowing. The Vex are so much scarier than we give them credit for.
Which I think this is an interesting kind of correlation between what we see Quoria do and what the Soul Divisive does in the Black Garden.
Yes.
Where the Soul Divisive also took up worship of the Black Heart, the whatever that was, lump of darkness.
I think it's darkness. I'm going to call it darkness.
Yeah. They also decided that the best course of action was to create religious worship of this darkness. I think for different reasons. Their logic was different, but they came to the same conclusion that Quoria did, and that is that...
And for a machine, and specifically the Vex machine, for them to come to that conclusion, that's a big deal.
Yeah, because that means that they have decided that worship is the best means for the Vex existence to continue. Because that's their main goal, is that the Vex...
That's their ultimate everything.
Vex should exist.
They exist to exist, yep. They've existed since the beginning. They've existed before the beginning. Like in the beginning, there was the light and the dark and the Vex, and the Vex thought it was good. And no, that's like they literally existed since the beginning. And so their whole entire existence has been, how do we continue to exist? That's the problem they're trying to solve. Yeah. That's the continuous. And to them it is a literal problem. Like they existed as algorithms, as mathematical algorithms, and all that, and then manifested into a physical form in the radiolarian fluid, then continued to evolve, and I put that in quotation marks, into their current Vex. And for them that's their only thought process. How do we continue to exist? And not in a good or bad sense, in a we have to be the only thing that exists, but
it's
not,
a very
not like
binary
we have to be
sense.
Very, very binary. We exist or we don't exist.
Yep.
And that's very mechanical. That's very digital logic. And it's, man, all these entities in Destiny are they have way more depth to them than I think any of us give them credit for.
Oh yeah.
And that's mind blowing that two different what would you call that? Two different battalions, two different armies, two different sects of Hive came to that same conclusion of this idea of religion and this idea of worship is the only way to exist,
or is the most
each in their own individual ways. That's it. The most efficient way, because at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. Yep. How do we get to 100% efficiency?
So I found this line interesting and kind of funny in my headcanon. So for some Vex reason, Quoria never attempted to introduce worm larvae into its mind fluid. On one hand, good, because that would be scary.
A Vex
Hive hybrid.
Dude.
But so from a
and then it could be Ascendant.
Ooh, yeah.
Dude.
From a in universe lore reasoning, I was like, okay, well, I guess
for some Vex reason.
If I were,
I like that wording.
If I were to try and offer a legitimate in-universe explanation, it would be that Quoria recognized that by combining with the Hive larvae, it would make them have to feed it for survival, and that is not a path to permanent existence, or is not an efficient path to permanent existence.
Yeah. Ooh, now there's a good thought.
The outside,
it's not an efficient path to permanent existence. I like that.
The outside perspective, what I think would be funny to imagine is happening is the authors of these lore cards of the Books of Sorrow wrote this epic conflict between Quoria and the Hive, and then someone came up and like, that's really cool. Why didn't Quoria ever assimilate the Hive larvae? And the writer going, well, shit.
Well, because some Vex reason. I don't fucking know. Yeah. That is literally because video game. They literally wrote in there, and this is an interesting thought too, because there are entities in Destiny that know that they are in a video game. Namely the Ahamkara. Yeah. But the fact that even the Vex are like, well, because video game. Like, come on. Like, you can't do that, can you?
I mean, they did. So
they did, and that's that is amazing. But it absolutely is this episode of it's like the part 2 of the Full House episode, right? Like, it's, Crota's over there like, oh shit, I fucked up. I gotta close this thing. Oh god, there's these little robot things everywhere. I keep killing them. They keep killing our people. I don't know what the hell's going on. And then the two sisters come by. Dude, our dad is gonna kill us.
Yeah.
He is literally gonna eat our souls. We are fucked. Like, we need to solve this now. And they're just, all three of them now running around like, okay, get the wizards, get everyone. Call this guy, call that guy. This, I think that one thing is the bad thing, that it calls itself Quoria Blade Transformed. So we're gonna take it down. And Quoria's like, nah, I'm good.
I'm out of here. I'm gonna sit on the other side of this little realm and just send armies at you.
Yep. Like, nah, I'm good. Yep. And not just that, I'm going to exist in both places at once. Because Vex reasons. Boom.
Because some Vex
Well, you can't use that as a reason. You can't. And then it's like the two kids making up rules to a game that they just made. And they're just like, well, you can't do that. And the other guy's like, yeah, I can. Because Vex reasons. Boom.
Reasons.
What you gonna do about it?
Nope.
Well, what if we... Nope. Vex reasons. But what if we... Nope.
Vex reasons.
Vex reasons.
I'm gonna use that from now on in our raid groups for anything.
That's what's happening. Like, anything that goes wrong. Well, why'd we die? Vex reasons.
Vex reasons. Yeah.
What, Zor? Why'd you do that? Vex reasons.
Why didn't you pick up the relic? Vex reasons.
Vex reasons. If Bungie can use it, I can use it. Boom.
Yep. And the best part is no one in our clan is going to know what the hell we're talking about unless they come listen to this episode. So.
Well, I like that. That's, oh, there he is. There's our epic producer Eclipse. That's, man, because Vex reasons. What a shit way to write that too. Like that's that's exactly what happened, right? Like how you described it, of like, oh man, dude, that's epic, that's awesome. But why did if Quoria's like this great thing and it saw the worm, like, fuck, I don't know, because of Vex reasons. Oh,
the deadline's
we can
tomorrow
do
because
that?
Vex reasons.
We can do that? Oh, absolutely, we can do that. Just fucking put it in there. Who's gonna call us out on it? We're the writers. Like, we can do whatever the fuck we want. Like, yeah, no, that's exactly what's happening there. But no, like I like the idea of Coria didn't take on the larva because it didn't see, like, Coria itself did not see that as the most efficient way to continue to exist. Because of the idea of having to feed it. Like, that's the other part of the equation, right? Is efficiency. It's how do we exist efficiently, and how do we become the most efficient existence possible? And that's
Well, I think it's less about how do we become the most efficient existence possible. It is, what is the most efficient path to soul existence?
There you go. There you go. I like that. I really do like that. Yeah, no, that's everything. And then for them to fight for 100 years local time, and to just make no progress, like no headway one way or another, and Coria to just sit back and go, yeah, what's up? Can't beat me because Vex reasons.
And Coria's learning this entire time because that's what they do.
That's the thing. That's the thing. The whole thing with the Vex is, if the longer it fights you, the longer it can learn from you, and therefore it can and I mean, we see that in the Infinite Forest.
Oh yeah.
Right? Like, that's the whole reason the Infinite Forest existed. It created millions and millions and millions and millions of different timelines to try to assess out, hey, well, if it literally looks at every binary possible outcome of every question posed to it, right? Like, if we go left here, that takes this path. Well, then if we go right here, that takes this path. And they're literally assessing this at an individual level of choices and decisions, and to see Coria doing that in real time over the course of 100 years, like that, Coria is a hell of a lot more powerful, and the sisters are a hell of a lot more powerful, and we beat them.
Mm-hmm.
We beat all these entities. That's the thing. Like, I'm starting to realize that Crota is just kind of like a fuck off. Like,
yeah,
he's kind of the derp of the group. Like, not to talk bad to any Crota fans, but you might want to pick someone else to be a fanatic about.
We'll see. He might do some interesting things. I mean, I guess the big event to Crota's name is that he slaughtered literally thousands of Guardians on the moon before meeting us. Our player
right.
Guardian.
Right.
Which maybe again
he didn't have the power. He didn't have the power of friendship and love.
Right. And Galahorn.
God dang it. An icebreaker.
An icebreaker, yeah. But that's just another thing. It goes to show our player Guardians' power level in comparison to the general populace of Guardians.
Yeah.
Granted, we weren't exactly facing Crota in the same situation as those thousands that died on the moon fighting him. We invaded his throne world when he was not necessarily ready for us through kind of a back door that Eris showed us, and we got to him that way, which is very different than fighting him on a battlefield in his prime with his army. Absolutely. But at the end of the day, we still beat his ass. So
right. Well, and so, but yes. Yeah. That everything about this set of lore entries for 4.0 to 4.9 is, there's a lot of interesting things here, but again, most of this stuff is stuff that's been presented to us as the Guardian and
right.
in game, and so we have a little bit better understanding of it going into all this, and so I think that kind of helped us get through all of 4 in a single episode. This is kind of mind blowing. We're gonna have to come up with content real quick.
Well, I do think. One last point about 4.9. It does confirm that Savathun tricked Crota into cutting into the Vex realm. How she knew it was
And that's
there, or I don't know, but
unknown.
she
Unknown.
knew that was where the Vex lived, and the Vex would be a big problem, and somehow, some way, directed Crota to cut into their world to make this portal. So we were correct. We just hadn't gotten to that point yet
Yeah.
in the lore.
Well, and like obviously we have so much more to cover with Coria herself. All the way up until hell last season, season of the Splicer was in game where we actually went to her realm and fought her. And I am still not 100% on the idea that we have killed Coria.
So a fun little fan theory.
I'm 99% there.
Fun little fan theory about Coria. And actually, I wanted to talk about this too. Coria states, or it states in the
bonus
book of Sorrow,
episode.
Coria's objective was to exploit the paracausal physics of Oryx's throne to become divine. So Coria understood
that exact thing.
Coria understood the sword logic, understood how it would lead to power, and understood even if Coria could not simulate paracausality, had an understanding of what paracausality was and the potential of what it could do, that it knew that it could use those paracausal laws of Oryx's throne world to itself become a hive god, essentially.
To become paracausal.
Yeah. And if Coria at this state, having been fighting the hive for 100 years, already had that knowledge, I don't think it's a huge stretch to think that Coria, when we meet her or it, maybe has some form of throne world or some form of oversoul or something like that.
Now here's one thing to possibly back that up or combat it. I don't know how this can be taken. If Coria has an understanding of paracausality and paracausal abilities, and we as Guardians using our light are using paracausal, or we are paracausal because Guardians do make their own fate, does that basically mean that when we fought her, we were just fighting a crucible match?
Maybe,
and
maybe.
Not in like a funny sense, but like in a genuine, like, hey, she could have just rezzed on the other end of it.
Yeah, maybe so. I think there's a lot
but we don't know if she can res. Like, right. That's res is always associated with light, and she is very much associated with darkness now. And I don't want to say she's associated with darkness now. She was literally taken. She had a taken barrier in front of her. So I mean, and taken being of the darkness, like I very much think that she is tied further to the darkness than she is the light, because I think at a base level, the Vex as a whole are a neutral party. I think they are neither light nor dark.
I would agree. Yeah.
And then every time that they've had some type of darkness introduced to them, it has become this religious worshipping, and now they are more of the dark than they are of neutral, but they still are not of the light or of the dark. It's like a 70-30 thing, right? Like they're still 30% neutral, but there's like 70% darkness, or maybe it's the other way. Maybe they're 70% neutral and 30% darkness. Like that's and that's how they came up with this efficient way of existing. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I don't think we really beat Coria then. I don't think we really beat Coria, and I don't think we really beat the sisters, and I don't think we really beat Oryx. I truly think that these beings were way more powerful than I think these were false victories.
I won't go that far personally. I could certainly see the in-universe reason for them maybe coming back around at some point, but I'm of the belief that when we defeated Oryx, we defeated Oryx. Specifically because, well, I guess for a number of reasons. One of the bigger ones being that the touch of malice exists, or did exist in D1.
Yep.
and that
Well, it quite possibly still exists.
it's somewhere in the rubble of the original tower.
I mean, we found Gallahorn again.
This is true. Again, I would love to see Kingsfall come back. I think that would make a lot of sense as something to come back shortly after Witch Queen, as
Absolutely.
the vanilla raid, redo. But yeah, Quaria's interesting. Part of my desire for us to not have beaten Quaria is that it felt like Quaria didn't get the for all the hype and all of the mystique around Quaria, she's just kind of a lame boss.
Yeah.
But on the other hand,
Yep.
I understand that not every big bad in the game can be a raid boss. Like they need to give solo players some kind of conclusion, some kind of ability to be like, yeah, I beat the dude that was
I beat Quaria.
at,
I'm a guardian of the light. I am the most powerful being on earth.
yeah, you know. So I get it. But yeah. I think maybe that's a good spot to stop, actually. It doesn't quite get us all the way through verse 4. Technically, there's still 4:10 and 4:11.
Get out of town.
But
they only go to 9.
Not for 4. But there's a lot of really dense information in those two. That
well, shit, I thought we were getting all the way through 4. I truly thought 4-9 was the end. So
nope.
Okay then.
We got 2 more, but like I said, it's very, very dense info, and it's all cataloging the conflict between the Vex and Oryx and Quaria, and I feel like we're gonna want to not be under any kind of like time constraint when we're discussing those bits.
Oh, absolutely.
So I think that's a good.
Those are very important bits.
Next time.
Yeah. Well, cool. Dang, man, we 9 verses, 9 partial verses.
Yeah, we trucked right along today.
9 sub verses. We really blazed right through it. All right. Well, I'll start with thank yous then. My first thank you goes to let's see here. Let's start with Full House, just because I feel like that's appropriate. As much as we joked about here about this being an episode of these 2 verses being episodes of Full House, that's something that obviously Myth grew up on and I grew up on myself.
Yeah.
I don't remember a whole lot of it, but yeah, that's so thank you, Full House, for giving us cool 90s references, and we're sad to see you go, Mr. Bob Saget. The world will be a little bit smaller without you. My next thank you is to 2022 for just being a shit year.
Already?
We lost Betty White and we lost now I'll give you that one. Betty White was last year, but that's kind of a shit start to a year, right? Mm-hmm. Like I don't know how much you can't really go down from there, and then we lose Bob Saget. I'm like, all right, you proved me wrong, world. Thanks, dicks. Let's see here. Who else can I thank? Oh, we definitely have to thank the sisters. I mean, without them, we wouldn't have death songs. Like, we have to thank Oryx for having. Yeah, we wouldn't have. Crota wouldn't have cut open the world. Like, that's a fucked up ass family tree, man. Like, they got a weird dynamic going on there.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you to Oryx for just being crazy. Thank you to your sisters for locking you away and driving you insane. Thanks Toland again for being insane. Yeah. Obviously, thank you, Mark, for being able to join us tonight.
Yeah, no problem. You guys had another great episode.
Absolutely. Yeah. Myth, you got anything?
No, I think you covered it. We're hoping that despite the aforementioned terrible start to 2022, that at least for the World of Destiny and the world where we discuss all of the lores and happenings in Destiny, that I think this will be a good year. Witch Queen's looking to be really, really cool, and I'm excited to see where things go and the new theories we can come up with. So.
Me too. And of course, I the one thank you that I forgot that I should never forget. Thank you, Myth, for being here and perpetuating this craziness forward and letting us all have our crazy thoughts together. So,
Absolutely, it's a ton of fun.
alrighty. Well, from all of us lore nerds to all of you guardians out there, continue having a wonderful year, and we'll see you next week.